Hi, all of you wonderful scuba divers out there. Welcome to the Scuba Diver Magazine podcast, where I break down the latest scuba diving news and just things that have piqued my interest over the previous week. The podcast is sponsored by the scuba diving giant Scubapro, who manufacture a wide range of diving equipment for entry-level scuba divers experiencing the underwater world for the first time to advanced technical divers and professional scuba divers as well. I'll talk more about Scubapro later on in this podcast. This week on the podcast, a missing German scuba diver in the Bahamas, a court settlement for a commercial diver who was sucked into an opening in a dam in the US, a British diver has received the Women of the Future award, the Manta Trust is also on the search for a new brand ambassador, a Swedish energy company has used a rebreather in an effort to create the world's first carbon-negative radio advert, and it's that festive time of year again when the date for the Vobster Santa dive has been set. Some breaking news as I'm recording the podcast is that Indo Siren, a liveaboard, has caught fire this morning whilst all guests were out on their first dive. The fire was apparently in the engine room. Everybody was off safely, but did lose everything that was on board, including their passports. Scuba Diver Magazine has been in contact with the marketing department and the company involved, and they are preparing a statement. So head over to scubadivermag.com and you'll see the latest information and everything that we know. At the moment, that's all I've seen. There's a few images coming out of it, and it's completely destroyed, unfortunately. But it's good to hear that everybody got off safely, both the crew and the divers who are already in the water. But yeah, now they have the awkward part where they have to get repatriated, wearing nothing but a wetsuit and their BCD and fins. Indo Siren was a beautiful sail diving ship, and it was launched in 2011. It's a 40-meter long liveaboard, and it's built on the Indonesian island of Sulawesi, and is handcrafted from ironwood and teak, which is traditional to the area. If you haven't seen it before, it's one of those, it's like a white wooden ship with the master liveaboards blue, like royal blue sails. Beautiful liveaboard. Such a shame that it's now been destroyed. But yeah, head over to Scuba Diver Mag for the latest news on that. That's all the information I have, and they haven't released a statement quite yet. Also check out DiverNet, because they'll probably run the story as well, and they'll have the most up-to-date information. So the first news story comes out of the Bahamas, where a 47-year-old German diver who was part of a trip to the famed Tiger Beach off the west end of Grand Bahama has been missing since Tuesday. A search is underway, but hopes of finding the woman are growing increasingly remote. According to reports, the diver entered the water around 10:30 a.m. and was seen to surface briefly before disappearing beneath the water again. Some of the women's diving equipment was recovered from the scene, and it is thought she was attacked by a tiger shark, which frequent the area and is how it got the name Tiger Beach. Hundreds of divers have shared these waters with tiger sharks and often lemon sharks as well over the years, with very few incidents recorded. But at the end of the day, these are still wild animals, and those taking part in the dives do know the risks, albeit minimal, involved. I've never been myself, but what I've seen online, a lot of people say that they're quite strict on recommending, the surface is a very dangerous area with the sharks around. It's usually negative entry, so you get in, you get straight down, and safety stops are discouraged as well to avoid hanging in mid-water, especially up around the surface. So terrible news, and hopefully it won't affect the tourism in the area too much. An out-of-court settlement has been reached in the case of a US commercial diver who died after having his arms sucked into a high-pressure underwater pipe on a Georgia hydroelectric dam 3 years ago. Despite the assurances of the dam operator that everything necessary for the diver's work had been shut down, a valve had been left open on the pipe. Alex Reed Paxton, 31, a commercial diver with more than 10 years' experience, had been checking for suspected damage to a chain at Lake Oliver Dam on the 27th of October 2020. The pipe sucked in Paxton's left arm with a force so great that he was no longer able to inflate his chest from his air supply. He would have fallen unconscious and died of mechanical asphyxia within minutes. This is Delta P. You're warned very, very fervently against Delta P, and I think it kind of should be mentioned in recreational diving courses as well. It's because there are lots of cases, especially of like divers cleaning swimming pools, and they get too close to the drain at the bottom, and it sucks you in, and you basically have all of the weight of the water above you trying to push you and create this seal. Your body's now creating a seal against this drain, and there's no way humanly possible that you'd be able to pull yourself free, and you can't see it. The instructor on my HSE course said that whenever they were doing work like this, they had a specialist instrument, which was basically a rag on a stick that you would poke close to any of these kind of openings, and if the rag got sucked towards it, no, I'm out. So that way you didn't have to get too close to this Delta P danger. They couldn't actually release Paxton's body until the dam employees had been able to locate the shut-off valve, which took them 30 minutes. You can actually watch the helmet cam footage online. There's a 30-second clip on YouTube, and it's just harrowing how quickly this happens. And all it is he's descending down this chain, just inspecting it, and then all of a sudden he just gets sucked to his left side, and he manages to say that I'm stuck. The rest is tragic history. Paxton's parents decided to bring a civil action against Georgia Power over their son's death. New evidence emerged as dam employees were questioned by the legal team. Jeb Butler of Butler Khan, the law firm appointed to represent Paxton's parents, said before allowing anyone to dive into the water inside the dam, Georgia Power was supposed to close all the valves so that no water was passing through the dam. Georgia Power didn't do that. Instead, Georgia Power left a valve open. So for these kind of jobs, you have specific like documentation paperwork, which is called LOTO, an LOTO, which is a lockout tagout procedure, and the operator had admitted violating its own LOTO procedures, under which all potential sources of hazardous energy should be closed, locked, and tagged out. So someone specifically goes round to each of these valves, and they close it and they tag it to make sure that no one accidentally just, why is this closed? Let me just reopen it. You tag it and you mark it down and you sign against it, and someone double checks it. Before the dive, the operator had held a safety meeting at which its staff was advised the dive team that all LOTO procedures had been completed, showing them this written documentation to this effect. And on the original document, you can see where they've got 4 lines, so 4 separate valves that had all been closed and signed off and whatnot. There was an extra gate-type valve, which is supposed to be closed with a wheel that had been omitted from the original LOTO form, but on later ones, for other jobs, it was found to be included in such forms since the fatality. Paxton's dive supervisor testified that if he had known about the later valve, he would have verified that it was closed before allowing Paxton into the water, and Georgia Power later admitted that it should have disclosed its existence, according to Butler. The dive team had checked Georgia Power's assurances using a flow meter in the dive area, but this had indicated that it appeared safe to dive. This is another reason why the instructor had his specialized tool, because even the flow meter suggested that it's safe to dive, but when you're that close, It's tricky. Georgia Power had denied that a diagram showing the gate type valve had been available, but had been able to find one after Paxton's death. Butler said that internal documents had revealed Georgia Power's acknowledgement of serious mistakes made by its employees in connection with Paxton's death. Dr. Ross Saxon, a commercial diving safety expert, testified that Paxton had acted responsibly. Georgia Power had hired one testifying expert who attempted to fault the dive team for not discovering the second valve before Paxton's dive, but not a single expert defended Georgia Power's actions, according to Butler. Well, yeah, how's the dive team going to just magically know that they need to look for this valve when the people who worked there weren't even that aware of it? Both parties have agreed to attend mediation after multiple days of negotiation, and they have reached an undisclosed settlement, but full details can be found on Butler Khan. Yeah, Delta P is dangerous. So if you're ever diving anywhere where there could be a differential pressure, so like high pressure behind you and then low pressure in front of you, you're going to get pushed and pulled towards that low pressure area. And if there's a small pipe which water is feeding into, yeah, it's basically going to suck you up against that pipe. There's a reason why on hyperbaric chambers the opening to vent gas is sintered. It has this like fine mesh over it so that nothing can smother it basically, and you can always allow sort of gas to escape. Just terrible when this kind of things happen, and just goes to show how dangerous it can be, commercial diving. On some lighter news, a UK marine biologist and scuba diver, Emily Cunningham, has been presented with a Women of the Future award for her work in ocean conservation. The accolade recognises trailblazing women across a variety of sectors, and she was the sole ocean professional to be shortlisted. The award is not her first. 3 years ago, DiverNet reported that Cunningham had been selected by the North American Association for Environmental Education as one of 2020's 30 global leaders under the age of 30, working at the front line of ocean conservation in the UK and internationally for more than a decade. Cunningham has secured more than £5 million in funding to lead the development of two pioneering coastal conservation projects and served on the Marine Conservation Society board. She's the co-founder of the international local government movement Motion for the Ocean. Cunningham has spent the past 18 months working on an expedition ship in Antarctica and the Americas, and is currently writing her first book. The judges commented Emily's love and commitment to the ocean was hugely inspiring and grounded in expertise. That was at the Women of the Future Awards ceremony in London on the 15th of November. Her potential for global influence is clear from growing Motion for the Ocean, the publication of her upcoming book, and global advocacy. So congratulations to Emily, and hopefully it will raise a bit more awareness to marine conservation. The Manta Trust has put out a global call for young people aged between 13 and 18 years old who would be interested in becoming one of their ocean ambassadors. It's envisaged that the youth ocean ambassadors would be a driving force for making a positive change in the worldwide conservation, marine science, and exploration. Ocean ambassadors will have the unique opportunity to connect with marine scientists, engage in eye-opening discussions, and even conduct interviews with experts in marine conservation. The Manta Trust sees these youth ocean ambassadors working with them to develop and implement local projects to increase conservation and improve ocean sciences in their area, and also for them to use their links in schools to get their local communities on board fully with these activities. Activities are now open, but they're not open for very long. The deadline is the 10th of December 2023, so you have the best part of a week if you're listening at the time of release. And any interested teenagers between the age of 13 and 18 are invited to submit an online application. I'll pop a link in the description below if you're interested, or if one of your kids is interested. So, as I mentioned at the start of the podcast, I'm going to talk briefly about Scubapro. Scubapro was founded in 1963 by Gustave Delaveille and Dick Bonin, and in 2023 they see their 60th anniversary, and Scubapro is stronger than ever. Today, Scubapro is a global brand, and you'll find them around any dive site or dive boat because scuba divers around the world just trust Scubapro as a brand. I personally have never had a problem recommending any Scubapro dive equipment to anyone asking. I used it whilst I was scuba diving and teaching, and so did all of my students as well. They were using Scubapro equipment, and no matter where you are in the world, it won't be hard to find a service center because they're located all over the world. The divers are Scubapro's inspiration. Every product, every enhancement, every decision, everything that they do is designed to make your diving experience the best that it can be. Because without this blue planet of divers eager to explore, their innovations mean nothing. And Scubapro want to thank you for being part of their journey and for being their inspiration for the future. They are so excited to share their latest innovations with you. The best is yet to come. A few big things this year have been the Ulex range of wetsuits that use a plant-based foam instead of neoprene, which is better for the planet, and the S-Tech fins, which are a more technical focused fin, a bit of a hybrid between the Seawing Nova and the Jet fin. One really cool feature is that you can actually adjust their buoyancy by adding or removing little metal plates in the fin before the dive. But for more information, head over to scubapro.com. A Swedish energy company has used a closed-circuit rebreather in a bid to create the world's first carbon-negative radio advert on a commercial radio recording. So the thought process behind this is that normal human exhales around 4% carbon dioxide with every breath, which is just a natural consequence of breathing and speaking, as I'm doing right now. However, for the energy company Skellefteå Kraft, which has long used recycled film clips to produce climate-smart advertising films, even these small emissions are valuable to avoid. They really wanted to create a carbon-negative advert. Together with Swedish advertising vault, Skellefteå Kraft has developed an unusual method to eliminate the human emissions from voice actors starring in radio commercials. So the carbon negative radio ad is recorded on inhalation, where the exhaled air is then captured by a CCR. The advert is a little bit weird. I get the message behind it. But it is basically a chap, and he's talking into a microphone, but he's only talking on the inhale as opposed to the exhale, because he wants to get all of that carbon dioxide to go through the scrubber in the closed circuit rebreather. So he'll exhale into the rebreather and then take the mouthpiece out, but then he'll talk whilst inhaling. Now, I tried this myself, and I'm not going to subject you to my attempts. But yeah, trying to speak whilst inhaling apparently can be done. It's not something I've ever tried before, and it's not the most clear way of communicating. But hats off to this guy. He does manage it. And then after he's inhaled, he then puts the mouthpiece back in and then exhales into the loop so that the scrubber can remove any CO2 or as much CO2 as possible. It's different. The carbon dioxide from the exhalation is captured and bound in the soda line, the scrubber, preventing it from reaching the atmosphere. Apparently, they measured that the carbon negative radio ad captured 470 milligrams of carbon dioxide. Quoting, "Sometimes the solution to big changes can be as childishly simple as it is absurd. We are incredibly grateful for the trust and the opportunity to break new ground with this revolutionizing recording technique during prime time radio," said Samuel Swarsky, Rohan Munth, and Christopher Wernald, creatives at Vault, in a joint comment. Anki Hogdal, the marketing communications manager at Skellefteå Craft, said Skellefteå Craft has an ambition to be 100% renewable in everything that we do and to create innovative products and services. Therefore, it is also completely natural for us to continue exploring how the advertising we produce and broadcast can be as climate smart as possible. Now, I'll put a link to the advert down in the description below. It's something a little bit uncouth, something unusual. It is nice to see closed circuit rebreathers being used in other ways. I'm sure there was probably an easier way to like perform this instead of having like the full rebreather system on your back. Definitely unusual, but it's nice just to have something a little bit different to talk about on the podcast. And yes, Vobster Santa's, one of the biggest and best Scuba Santa diving events on the UK calendar, is of course returning this year. So break out your fluffy beards and your red outfits for the 10th of December. You don't have long. Vobster Santa's is all about getting together for some festive diving fun and of course raising some serious cash for charity. Since 2007 it has raised more than £40,000. The 2023 event is aiming to raise money for the RNLI, the Royal National Lifeboat Institution, and Help for Heroes by encouraging each and every participant to get sponsored. Both charities are very close to the hearts of the Vobster K team. Vobster is aiming to get as many sponsors Santa's hitting the water at 10 a.m. on the 10th of December in one very jolly and quite silly group. Gates will open at 7:30 a.m. followed by a dive brief at 9:30, so there'll be plenty of times to get yourself parked, kitted up and ready to hit the water. Their previous record has been 185 Santas in the water all at once. If you are interested and you are able to reach Vobster on the 10th, then yeah, you can sign up from their website. Again, I'll put a link down in the description below so that you can join in. As far as new diving equipment, Fourth Element have announced that there's a Halo AR glove that has just been released. So that's quite interesting. The Halo AR is the successor to their very popular Halo 3D dry suit undersuit. Halo 3D had very clever like mesh panels in key sections to keep like your chest and your thighs warm, and now they have these dry glove liners which use the same or similar technology. Halo AR is a little bit different. They've wanted to get argon into insulation suits somehow, and they've been experimenting with all sorts of different things, but they have managed to create this new material that is just much more insulating compared to just normal fleece. And yeah, now they have a dry glove liner. So if you're using dry gloves, you're using their Ellipse or their new dry suit comes with, I forget the brand's name. It's relatively new. They got a new like twist and click system. Then yeah, you've got some Fourth Elements dry gloves. Or if you just want a nice warm pair of gloves. They're a little pricey at £80, but yeah, if you really want the warmest dry glove liner out there, then yeah, it might be considering the Halo AR gloves. The argon material that they're made from is a form of aerogel developed for insulation in spacecrafts and cryogenics. And traditionally, this material is created by removing the liquid from a gel and then replacing it with air, which creates a lightweight, hollow, and flexible structure. When they tested it more than 10 years ago, it kind of crushed and disintegrated. But argon is a foam embedded version of this which allows it to function in a diving context. It's like crush resistance, but it still keeps that like thermal warmth inside. Santee have also announced something, or teased an announcement of something. They just say something new is coming this weekend. The image that they've used is 12312.2023. So who knows with that? That will be quite exciting. We'll see what's coming out of Santee. They have released footage of a new roll top dry bag, which looks much wider than their previous. They had a very popular one a few years back, which was just a tough water proof roll top dry bag, but it was a backpack style. Looks like they've kind of extended and improved upon that. It's it's like gunmetal grey. It's got external pouches on it as well, so quick access, and there's also a clear front section so that you can put whatever you want in there, like a dive roster or something, but it's still like protected on the inside, so that's quite cool, and instructors will probably like that. And Poseidon have announced a collaboration with Wool Rebel, who are pioneers in crafting lightweight outdoor apparel featuring their environmentally conscious Swedish wool lining Faratex. And a collaboration between them and Poseidon. It hasn't been released yet. They're just like teasing it. A lot of like teasing announcements this week. But yeah, that would be quite interesting and nice to get some environmentally friendly surface wear. So I'll keep an eye on that and let you know as soon as that is dropped. Otherwise, that's about it that I've seen for new dive equipment. We had our Black Friday, so everything's all been sold off and then gone back up to its normal price, or depending on the retailer, it had the little Black Friday tag just removed and it stays at the same price. I've got a little bit of time for some Ask Mark questions, so I'll be quick. The first one comes from Zach W7587. They say, at what point is it worth investing in or diving with a second dive computer? Seems like a good investment to possibly save a dive trip, especially Liveaboard, etc. But maybe I'm just paranoid. Redundancy is always useful. It's like so many things when people ask, oh, when should I like transition from a jacket to a wing BCD or do this and that? There's no like definitive, now, at like dive 23 or something. You don't really get that. It's just when it's right for you. Diving with two computers simultaneously is quite useful, because at some stage they do just fail. I mean, I've had computers fail with me on dives, whether it's flooding, the cold affects the batteries quite a lot, and if you have a second one, then you have that like redundancy. And there's a couple of ways of doing it. There are some. Do they still make them? Oceanic used to make a computer called the Bud, which is a backup dive computer, the BUD, and it was kind of like a stopwatch that you or like the size and design of a basic stopwatch, and you would clip it off to a D-ring, and it would just like keep track of your dive and give you the vital statistics like your current depth and your no decompression limits and whether you need to do any safety stops. But that was kind of it. It was purely the backup should your primary dive computer just die during the dive, to be able to maintain depth and maintain safety stops and then get out safely. But I don't know if they still make it, to be honest. I don't think it was overly popular because at that kind of price point, it was worth just getting either a second like basic dive computer, because even the really, really cheap basic ones do everything that most divers need nowadays. They'll do all of your air and your nitrox and all of that. And yeah, you just have that as your backup. You can basically say, you know what, I'm just going to get myself a fancy new one and then use my old dive computer as the redundant backup. When you are diving with two computers, they either have to be on like exactly the same algorithm, but even if they are, you still get some ambiguity between, or some difference between the depth ratings. So you do run the risk of one computer getting a bit angry at you. So I typically turn off alarms before the dive, just so that the one computer isn't going nuts on your wrist. If I'm testing dive computers, then I'll always have my like main dive computer. That's the one that I dive to, but the other one is on my wrist and I'm just like checking it out. Because if I'm diving like multiple tests, then I may not be diving the same dive computer all the time, so I always bring my my primary. When to sort of start doing it yourself? For recreational diving, it's not a huge issue. Computers nowadays are pretty reliable, and it's unusual for one to flood unless you've like just changed the battery or just done something to it. So I wouldn't worry too much about getting a backup if you've got some spare cash lying around, and you fancy yourself a nice new dive computer, then yeah, by all means, change the battery on your old computer, and yeah, just have it as a backup. But you either have to dive with both of them all the time, so that it has all of your nitrogen loading, or you have to wait, depending on how many times you're diving, upwards of 24 hours to be able to clear your tissues and then start using the new dive computer. But there's no real. I mean, I typically, if I'm just diving for fun, just recreationally, nothing particularly deep, then yeah, I'll just dive a single dive computer. Yeah, as I said, they're pretty reliable nowadays. And finally, Mega Epic Llama says, "Hey Mark, if I'm not using the P valve during a dive, should I remove it and install a blanking plug, or is the off valve sufficient?" Yeah, so on a dry suit, you can have what's affectionately named a P valve, which you can connect to an external like catheter system. So if you're on a really long dive and you do need to relieve yourself, instead of just filling your boots, you can hopefully evacuate it from your suit. But if you're not using it, would you remove the P valve, because it's typically fitted to your to the inside of your dry suit thigh, and then just fit a blanking plug? You can. They do exist, blanking plugs for P valves. It's I trust mine. Well, I trust mine about as far as I can throw it. I trust my P valve that when it's closed, and I check it before every single dive at least once. I do trust that it's not going to flood, but whenever you remove it and then replace it with a blanking plug, of course you do run the risk of creating a leak point. So yeah, you can. It's not something that I do myself, just because hey, the valve works and it's sealed, so why tamper with it? But if it's getting in the way, because the hose, you get this hose on the inside, which can be a little bit annoying when you're getting kitted up. But I can't say I've ever like noticed it when I'm in the water when it's not connected. It just finds a natural space just in that area. But if you do find it annoying, then yeah, by all means, just unscrew it and fit a blanking plug. It's very much up to you. They do exist. Just double check that it's the right size for the valve that's fitted, because there are a handful out there, and I don't know if they're all the exact same size. They should be. Most of the dive industry should be universal, but it isn't. But yeah, if you're not planning on using it for like multiple dives, then yeah, it might be worth just fitting a blanking plug. Is a bit more low profile. And that's it for the podcast. Yeah, if I get any new news about the Indo Siren, then yeah, it'll go up on scubadivingmag.com and probably dive.net. Yeah, thank you for listening, everybody. Remember to check out today's sponsor, Scubapro.com, and all of their exciting scuba diving equipment. And yeah, if you are in one of the lucky areas that has a free Octo offer, yeah, grab yourself up a bargain. Otherwise, yeah, head over to our website, scubadivingmag.com. Like, share, subscribe, do all that good social media stuff. Thank you for listening, everybody, and of course, safe diving.